G'day everyone, I'm David Reidy. Welcome to Piano Finally, a podcast by an old bloke who's getting around to learning the piano. Finally. Welcome to show number 75. Thank you very much for listening. If you're back for another episode, then thanks for returning. If this is the first time you're hearing the podcast, I hope you enjoy what's in the show. And don't forget to subscribe if you do like it. Are you also learning a musical instrument? If you are, let me know how you're going with it. You can contact me at david@pianofinally.show. Well, the exams have been marked and the end of the year reports have been written, and so we're into the final weeks of teaching for the year. This means that I should have a lot more time for practicing over the next 2 months. It also means I can get back into swimming twice a day. There's some preparation work to do for next year's teaching, but there'll be time for that in the holidays. The format of this week's show will be a little different from normal. I'm going to split the essay section into two, as it is definitely a story with two parts. I'm writing this section of the podcast on Saturday afternoon, having just seen Bell Shakespeare's production of Romeo and Juliet at the Opera House, and before Devi's show in Marrickville. I'll write the second part of the essay tomorrow afternoon, when I know the conclusion. It's not really a surprise that I've seen a lot of performances in the last week. Knowing when the school reports were due meant that I could be sure I'd have some free evenings, and so that's when I made the bookings. It also coincides this year with the England and Australia cricket test series. So it seems that a lot of British celebrities have made their way to Australia over December and January. Tom and Dominic of The Rest Is History are here, and Tom at least went to see the cricket in Perth. Alan Davies is doing shows over the next few weeks, as are John Bishop and drummer Stuart Copeland. I went to The Rest of History Returns at the Opera House on Thursday. It featured Tom Holland and Dominic Sandbrook of the podcast in a show that was very much like an extended podcast episode, followed by a question and answer section. If you like The Rest Is History podcast and you get a chance to see one of this pair's live shows, then I'd recommend it. It was a fun evening. The premise behind the evening was based around that great Australian icon, Russell Crowe, who was actually born in New Zealand. It was really an excuse for Tom and Dominic to talk about the Roman Emperor Commodus and Victor Hugo, playing off Russell's appearances in Gladiator and Les Miserables. Sensibly, they took questions that were submitted via a web page before the second half, which meant that their producers could pick suitable topics and perhaps slip in a couple of Dorothy Dixes if good questions were lacking. I always worry when a presenter asks for questions and then passes around a microphone. Too often, it leads to either no questions or an audience member who possibly shouldn't be given a platform. In this case, however, the Q&A section was just as entertaining as the first half. On Saturday, I went to the last performance of this year's subscription to Bell Shakespeare's season, Romeo and Juliet, at the Opera House. I'm not sure how many times I've seen Romeo and Juliet performed live, but it must be at least a dozen. And it's always interesting to see how a troupe goes about performing it. This was a fairly conventional performance and excellently executed. Costuming was simple and contemporary. The staging, like all of the Bell productions, was minimal, 2 raised platforms and rugs and carpets. The comedic elements were handled well, especially by Meredith Eastman as nurse. The sword fighting was adequate and the pacing was great. All 4 productions by Bell Shakespeare this year have been excellent and well worth seeing. If you get a chance to see their work, and they tour all around Australia, then I'd certainly recommend getting out to them. There's a link in the show notes with some video that they have made available of the show. The last performance for this week was Devi Mamak and the Caravan band. Devi is, of course, my piano teacher, and her group includes a sitar player, a saxophonist, bass player, and a couple of drummers, one of whom is her son. Devi plays the piano, obviously. The band also includes belly dancers who add to the performance. Devi used to dance as well, and I think she still teaches. The performance was in a space on the second floor of an office building in Marrickville, a suburb just south of the city. During the day, it's a belly dance school and costume shop. I didn't even know such places existed. It's a small venue, but it was full. A nice addition was that there was food available, dips and bread, cheese and biscuits. I don't know if the food was store-bought or homemade, but it was really nice. Most of the music pieces the band plays are original compositions with a jazzy feel, based around Indian ragas as well as Western tunings. All the pieces were great, and though it's not the type of music I generally listen to, it was really enjoyable. Adding to the feel of the evening was the evident joy the dancers were having with their performances. All in all, it was a really nice way to spend an evening. I'll put a link in the show notes to Devi's page about the band. Keep an eye on it if you'd like to come to a show. Something new. In last week's essay, I mentioned that deciding to learn the piano had led to unexpected opportunities. I thought of that as a topic because of a project I have happening over the next 2 months. Because of the theatre subscriptions and other memberships I have, I get sent a lot of information about upcoming performances and shows. Back at the beginning of October, an email arrived from the Sydney Festival talking about a community choir and inviting anyone who was interested to join in. I thought I'd give it a go, though I'm not much of a singer. The choir will be performing at Barangaroo in Sydney on the 25th of January, the day before the 26th. Most calendars list the 26th of January as Australia Day, because in 1788 the British first raised their flag, claiming the continent as theirs. They pretended that the millions of people who already called this place home, and had for over 60,000 years, were not here. As a result, having our National Day associated with that event has become a point of contention over the last couple of decades. This community choir will be working with Indigenous musicians and artists, bringing black music and song. During the last week, the music and lyrics turned up in my inbox. There are 4 songs, 2 of which came with recordings, so I've listened to them, and they don't seem too difficult. I haven't learned them yet. It's going to be interesting to see how things go. The first rehearsal is tomorrow in a hall in the Rocks area near the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I have to be there at 12:30 for an hour-and-a-half rehearsal. There are 2 more rehearsals in January, a full dress rehearsal on the 24th, and then the performance on the 25th. I've been to musical rehearsals before over the last few years, but only ever as one of the teachers keeping the kids organised. I have no idea what it will be like tomorrow. I've not done any organised singing like this before. I sing along with the national anthem and the school song at assemblies, but those aren't really performances. My entire previous production experience as a performer was in the cast of Oliver when I was in Year 7 at school, or First Form as it was called then. From that point on, any participation was on the technical sides of the productions. So I'm curious as to what's going to happen. Will it be a wonderful new experience, a complete disaster, or something in between? Will it be completely unlike anything I'm expecting? I'll know tomorrow. You don't have to wait that long. I'll write up what happens when it's over on Sunday afternoon and include it later in the podcast, after the book review. Stay tuned. The last of the aspirational music purchases I made recently was another score from Schirmer, Bach's The Well-Tempered Clavier, 48 Preludes and Fugues. Again, this is not a book that I'll be tackling anytime soon, though after Devi and I looked through it, I have Prelude number 1 in C major marked as a starting point. Like the other Schirmer books, this one is well produced on quality paper. It's perfect bound, so with 256 pages, it's going to need some assistance staying open on the music stand. It has been produced from old engravings, so the text is not as clear as modern digital typesetting can make it, but it's not so old that it is difficult to read. The editor for the edition is Carl Cherney, he of the Exercises fame. Cherney has provided fingering throughout the score, as well as many other notations, including dynamics. There are no pedal markings, so you can decide for yourself whether to go down that path. The volume opens with a 2-page essay detailing Johann Sebastian Bach's life in general and the writing of the Well-Tempered Clavier in particular. As it's not credited to anyone else, I assume that this is also Czerny's work. The Well-Tempered Clavier is one of those pivotal pieces of music that every classical piano player eventually gets around to looking at. This edition from Schirmer is well produced and reasonably priced, and so it makes a good addition to a music library. I bought my copy from Music Junction for $49 Australian, and there's a link in the show notes. So, how did the rehearsal go? It was great. I'm so glad I decided to give it a go. I got to the venue early and ended up being the first into the hall. I was greeted by Nardi Simpson, the composer of the works we were about to start learning. She was also giving her niece an impromptu piano lesson. The hall eventually filled up, and we were ready to start. We began with an introduction to the pronunciation of some of the indigenous sounds that occur in the songs, as well as an explanation of how the concepts work together. There are 4 songs that the choir will be performing, but we only practiced 2 of them. The first piece I had heard as a recording, and it is simple and lovely. The second was more complex, but lots of fun to sing. I wasn't sure quite what to expect. The last time I was in a choir was with Brother Bede in second form, and that was in 1975. This was very different. Nardi led the rehearsal, and it was just a lot of fun. A line or 2 at a time, we made our way through the 2 songs. The second piece, 4 Directions, has some harmonies, so Nardi asked for the tenors and the lower voices together as a group. That was when it became clear that although there were over 200 people in the room, there were only half a dozen men. We were bolstered by some women who also sing in the tenor range, but I think we're going to have our work cut out for us. There were some minor technical difficulties with the projector, some amusing typos in the lyrics. At one stage we were singing about clams rather than calm, but it was a great time. And even as it's me saying it, by the end, the group was sounding pretty wonderful. There will be some more material coming in the email soon, I hope, in time for the next rehearsal in mid-January. Deciding to give this a go was definitely a step outside my comfort zone, but it was certainly the right decision. If you've got the chance to try something like this, go for it. You never know where it might end up. I don't. I'm looking forward to a less hectic week and a bit more time to get some more practice happening. I think it's a bit strange that I'm enjoying the practice more now that I have a much more advanced Beethoven piece, even though the progress is very slow. The experience with the choir has got me looking forward to the rehearsals and performances in January, and of course, summer starts tomorrow, which is always a good time of year. If you'd like to contact me, email is the best way. You'll find me at david@pianofinally.show and the website at www.pianofinally.show. In both cases, Piano Finally is all one word. The show is also available on Spotify and as an audio-only stream on YouTube. You can subscribe via any popular iOS or Android podcast application or from directories such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. I also post an excerpt and link for each episode as an Instagram reel. If you're learning an instrument, let me know where you are in your journey. What's going well? What are the challenges? What have you tried outside your comfort zone? What pieces are you enjoying learning the most? So, until next week, I hope your piano stays in tune and you enjoy your time at the keys. It has been a busy week, so I didn't get as much practice done as I had hoped. But as I said earlier, everything else is now out of the way, so there should be nothing to get in the way of some solid progress over the next couple of months. I'm continuing to work on the beginning of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. It's still not quite as even as I'd like, especially once the chords start changing more often. I'm still using the score, obviously, but I'm making progress. I'm still really enjoying working on this piece. I'm up to the place where the melody begins, the melody that is played with just the right-hand little finger. Progress has paused, but I'm sure that it will soon move on. Winnan Rossi's A Wild Chase is nearing completion, and I can now play the piece from memory. I'm still working on getting it even with the drum machine. Once I'm happy with that, I'll start increasing the tempo. The Trumpet Tune, by Jeremiah Clark, attributed to Henry Purcell, is coming along, slowly. I'm now concentrating on getting both hands to work together and learning the rest of the notes. It's the piece I've been practicing the least, so I'm looking forward to really getting stuck into it during the holidays.